So what do you see as the security industry's largest challenge ahead?
It's I think that it's a tough question for me. I think part of it is the demands of network demands for IP cameras, the amount of data that's starting to be gathered. How are you going to manage that? How are you going to store it? Storage costs are going down. How are you going to? So that you can buy a terabyte drive for a couple $100. So maybe storage isn't going to be a huge issue in the future, but bandwidth certainly will. And I think what we're going to see is more intelligence put out there as to managing the bandwidth. As I said, if you have a high megapixel camera and you're sending a lot of data downstream, you're sending a lot of that bandwidth is being taken up with stuff that you really don't care about. It's your walls, your floor, the asphalt in your parking lot. You do not need you don't need all those pixels and all of those bytes and bits about your own stuff. What you want to get, though, is high resolution, high information density on things that are happening within your own space. So I think there's going to be a challenge of sort of managing that fire hose of data and starting to figure out how to be more efficient and more intelligent about what we're gathering information on, and then how we're storing it and how we're accessing it later. Because at a certain point, we'll have enough. You say in theory you have enough data to recreate everything that's going on, but you don't have enough time to deal with that anyway. We need to be able to dive in and grab the important information that we need when we need it quickly. And I think integrating that with all of the different new technologies is where I think the biggest challenge is going to be for the security industry.
Peter, where do you see Tenebraex in 5 years?
It's a good question. It's a good question. We hope bringing distributive imaging to a much wider range of applications. That's what we do, is distributive imaging. Sorry, I moved that. That's what we do, is distributive imaging. And we think, we're just sort of scratching the surface. I hope we're still coming up with technological innovations. We're still making stuff and shipping pallets. That's what we like to do. But certainly trying to figure out how we can extend the utility and the ability of the cameras we're making. None of us are interested in making something and then sitting around and just producing it and going to sleep. We like making stuff. We like figuring stuff out. Part of what I have to do, really, as CEO, is keep going. No, wait. We need to make this. We need to do that. That's a great idea, but we're not going to do everything at once. You can't eat everything at once. We've got to do things in sections. So part of what we're doing is prioritizing, but we've got a lot of cool stuff we want to do, and I'm hoping that where we are is in a place to keep expanding the cool things we can make, the stuff that we think is cool.
I would assume that you could, and of course I'm thinking in simple terms, but if I took two 180s and stuck them together and threw a couple cameras on the bottom of it, I got a pretty large area of viewing. And I know that you guys have already thought of this and are have to be going in that direction.
The first prototypes we were doing were actually 360, not 180.
Okay.
You start to get into an interface issue because we're not horses or whatever. We don't have eyes in the back of our head. And the 360 view turns out to be conceptually very difficult. We've done some experiments where the view behind you is mirror imaged, because everyone's used to looking in the rearview mirror of a car. Yeah. And if you see something there and you say, okay, point to it, you'll point the correct way. If you don't mirror image it, you get confused. But what we've seemed to found from our tests, as I said, we did some prototypes, 360 prototypes from the Marines and others, showing it to them. No one had a clue what you're looking at. I mean, the space just doesn't, your brain doesn't work that way. But splitting it into 180-degree sections, that makes it conceptual. I think you may have seen there are people doing 360 viewers and one, especially on a moving platform, it's incomprehensible what's going on. But you split it into two separate chunks, and your brain goes, "Oh, okay, I can figure that out." So, yeah, 360. But in a security situation, we're dealing with architecture in the walls generally, and if you can get something that's unobtrusive and put it on a wall at a reasonable sight line, I think the imagery that you end up with is a little bit easier to understand. If you're stuck with a wide-angle dome camera in the ceiling, you're seeing the tops of people's heads, not their faces, and the space isn't the way it's presenting a reality to you in a way that you normally don't experience. So it's a little bit harder to deal with. So we'd rather make something that's small and obtrusive, put it in sort of normal sight lines, but in the security itself, generally you got a wall behind you. But we have done 360 things, and certainly on like little robots, the robot cams we're fooling around with now, you've got to see behind because you're in a situation, you want to back the robot up, you need to know situational awareness. It's not only where you have to go, but what's happening behind you. Are there people coming out of doorways behind you? Are there things like that? So
you're making some pretty small, very small cameras in your overall form factor. And I notice a lot of things are going on in the micro world. Have you looked at even smaller cameras and what might be possible?
Yeah, there are some very interesting camera sensors that are in the medical world that we've done some tests with. They have the advantage of being tiny. There are some things I'm using. Part of it is the packaging, the associated electronics. How are you getting those smaller? D7's fairly large, but we're putting H.264 and PoE over that, and that's a lot of the volume that's in the space. One of the things we're looking at for military customers is, and we've done some sort of brass board level and lab level testing, is a very tiny wireless unit that's half the size of your fist that would see 180, or you could do 360, and wirelessly will transmit that imagery and in a very low power. So it's battery powered, can sit someplace a long time and send imagery, or sit someplace asleep and be woken up by a remote sensor and then send imagery. Trying to get something very small, it's unobtrusive, easy to pack a bunch of them, and you can leave behind you to watch your back, or leave in a place to watch when you're not there. So there are some very small sensors. There's some issues with small pixels, as we all know. But it's an area we're actively working on and have been doing some lab and brass board work on trying to get really small cameras that still have that 180-degree undistorted view.
Peter, one last question. What would you say to...
Unfortunately, I have to bail. I don't know what's happening to the light for me, too, as the sun's hitting me. Anyway, go on.
No problem. Then we'll just close then, and I really appreciate you spending this time on a weekend up at your vacation home to discuss security and your products with us. Thank you.
I enjoyed it. Thanks very much.